Right, a general one today. Normally, State of the World videos are I've got a subject, but there's lots of little subjects on this one. Starting with Ukraine, obviously. If you look at the intelligence reports, it's all come to a bit of a dead end, really. Russia makes a gain, then Ukraine makes a gain, and they all seem to be sort of slipping round a bit. On the east of the Ukraine, but ears on the ground suggest even the wives and girlfriends have been involved in getting enough supplies to the bases to send to the Russians in the east of Ukraine. So they're running out of stuff, basically. So is Ukraine, but they've got the choice of being fed by us from this side with food, ammunition, medical supplies, all that. It's taken a long time to get there, but I think when it does, I mean, we've still got 800 and odd AK-47 magazines waiting downstairs, and they don't appear to be wanting those. They've taken a lot of other stuff. But these polymer 40 round mags, they don't seem to, obviously not running out of that kind of thing. And we've been in touch with 2 different Ukrainian army buyers, and nobody seems to want to know, but we'll see. So we're trying to do our bit anyway. But to do with, Ukraine, basically that's it. They're getting better and better and more accurate weapons all the time, and more range and all sorts of things. I think it's going. Well, it's been 100 days already. I think it's going to be a bit longer than that. And then, just say Ukraine does beat them back. They've got to have this massive border army after that to keep them out. And then they're going to be getting stronger and stronger. And they'll keep firing the missiles, because now they've got the excuse. It's still a war, so they've got the excuse. So, what it really needs, the only solution, is for the people around Putin to say, right, enough's enough, arrest him and hand him to the Hague. Don't kill him, Putin. Arrest him and hand him to the Hague. Then everything will snap back to normal, because we all know he's the problem. You get 2 different types of Russians. You get the ones who can see through the rubbish, and then you get the real naive ones who believe everything their government says. So, but once they see what he's done, I think they'll understand, because they're being fed a load of rubbish, as we know. That's that. Now, around the world, lots of despots and dictatorships are all watching this, and they're saying, right, if Russia gets their bit of Ukraine, then we're going to go for our bit. So obviously there's China and Taiwan, but there's lots of other little bits and pieces that are going to be they're going to be watching. And this all stems from obviously the weak government in America. He might not be weak, but or he might be. I'm not bothered. But every country is watching, and they all think he is now weak and won't do anything. So all he's doing now is supplying Ukraine, but I don't think we're going to see America enter another war as such. So hang on a sec. Got to watch this constantly. Somebody's coming up. So it's a bit of a situation, really. Of course, going back to the Project X, the X project itself, the problem is the country system. If we didn't have a country system, this wouldn't happen. Because we've all got to now have an army to keep our country from being invaded because of supplies that are worth money. So if you didn't have money, then the supplies would only be grown or taken out of the ground as and when needed, not to keep a business running. Because obviously a quarry has to keep selling stone or minerals in order to not go bust. But in a Project X system that wouldn't happen. You only take out of the ground what you need. If you've supplied everybody, you immediately go to 100% in your, I suppose what in the old system would be pay. So you can do what you like. But anyway, that's a long way off, and but it's probably closer than you think. Because with a money, religious or country system, you can't survive. Because most of your money goes on supporting your army, you know. Anyway, carrying on. Climate. Yes, that's another thing, climate. Getting busy today. Yeah, there's definitely changes. You know, if I cancel everything anybody's ever said and use my own mind, the changes from when I was a kid is absolutely terrific. Some people say, but we're still coming out of the last ice age. You know, so things are going to be heating up. But it all seems to be happening in my lifetime, not over millions of years, like it's supposed to. It's all happening in my lifetime. Things are getting, well, I wouldn't say warmer, because as soon as you heat up water, i.e. the seas, even by 1.5%, that means a lot more water in the air. So it'll actually stop the sun. It'll be like being in a mist the whole time. You know, it'll actually stop the sun from coming through. So it could be hot, it could be, you know, that's why you haven't seen any real heat as such change difference. Because I can remember in the 70s sitting in the garden and it was red hot. You know, the sky was blue, you got sunburnt in seconds. And that, I mean, that probably still happens because the sun gets through the atmosphere, but there's certainly more cloud and sort of more, not heavy rain, but lots of sort of misty sort of spitting the whole time, you know. And summers change, whereas before we had a defined summer, now you get 4 or 5 good weeks in very, very early on, and then nothing, thunderstorms and things. We're expecting storms today, apparently. You know, I think we've had our summer now. But then again, you know, because it's all in turmoil, nobody knows. But, you know, the climate thing seems to have gone on the back burner. And because of money, nobody can do it. Nobody can stop using their car. Which brings me on to the fuel problem. Whether there's a shortage or not, it costs the same money to get the fuel out of the ground as it does oil, as it did 10 years ago. You know, the only difference is obviously, I don't know how they do the fuel going into the fuel truck to deliver the fuel, but it was obvious that you could just take it from the stock. But I don't think they do. I think they sell it back to the delivery drivers, sort of thing. So they're going to be paying the same. Now, the lorry crisis, I mean, food prices going up, really the government should put lorry drivers able to buy red diesel the same as farmers. Then that would halve their fuel bill overnight. But I don't think the government aren't clever enough for that, I don't think. Or can't lose that much money, I don't know. But think how much money they're making on fuel. I think it costs 44 pence, I think, to produce a litre of fuel. And the government, the garage gets 5 pence, or has 5 pence to play with, up and down. So if you say you're talking about 60 pence a litre, right? That would, and they're charging us what? 180. Where's the rest of the money gone? I know the government get two lots of tax. They get a fuel duty thing and VAT. So they're actually charging you two lots of tax on 1 litre of fuel. Now, what's that about? Okay, they tried to help us by taking 2 pence off. That's no good, is it? No good at all. So, we've got to expect everything to go up. What I've seen so far is I was paying straight £100 a month for electricity. They've just put that up to 144, which is roughly in line with what they've said. About half again, isn't it? So, that's like £144. So that's £44 added onto my bill. Fuel, I've got to fill the van up. That's going to be another third of what it used to be. So there's a lot of a lot of additional cost now. I had no idea we were getting most of our oil from Russia. I didn't know that. I thought we had North Sea oil. But apparently, that North Sea oil is worth a lot. So the government sell that, or the companies sell that abroad to other people. And we import cheap stuff for our own fuel. I didn't know that. So that's a bit silly as well. But again, it's all to do with money. The government obviously, or the companies obviously get more money importing cheap fuel and selling our expensive stuff. Where's that profit going? Was it BP made 40 billion, or was it Shell? 40 billion. Whoever wants to make that kind of profit? Which brings me to another thing, How are they getting around the government with that? They must all be friends. Or have got shares. Backhanders. Well, they're not backhanders now. You don't get a brown envelope anymore. You get the money paid into a numbered Swiss account or an offshore account. Or an offshore company saying consultancy fees, which I think I've been into before on some of the other videos. So, yeah, it's not a brown envelope full of banknotes anymore. The money doesn't appear in this country at all. That's why all the MPs and things, or a lot of them, have got offshore accounts or Swiss bank accounts. And a lot of people go one better than that. They go on a skiing holiday, and for 2 weeks they do real skiing and enjoy it. But it's really to check the bank account. That's why you see so many people to Closters and all that. All these top people. There's a banking system waiting for them. It happens everywhere. I mean, it's not, third world countries are doing it all the time. You get an African dictator, and he's what was that? African dictator, and he's basically just there to filter the money away from the country. Africa is a rich country, but you won't see any of the money from it because it's all being filtered away. Now, according to my dad, we're just as bad over here. It's just that we're a lot better at hiding it. So that's another problem we've got. If you did away with the money system, everyone comes bang, down to earth, the same as everybody else. Like that. Absolute straight line. Even if you've got 1 old pence, you're still no better off than the person next to you. Or worse off. So some people don't like that, you see, which is why they suppressed the whole idea 20 years ago when my dad first put it in as a report. So, yeah. So I'm afraid we're stuck with this situation. And again, in the world there's too many of us. So they're not going to be bothered if we start dying. That'll save the planet for them. You know, I can see in the not too distant future crime going up like mad, and people knocking each other on the head for a loaf of bread. You know, it could still happen. Unless we do a wartime type thing, where they just planted food absolutely everywhere, on every street corner was corn. You know, they just went mad, which we could still do, because the government round here are still paying farmers to not use their fields. What about that? They get paid to leave the field dormant. Yeah, I've sort of beggars belief. Instead of saying to them, we'll buy your crop, like a lot of other countries do, Ukraine, breadbasket of the world, they say, nothing's going to be coming from there. Don't know whether you've seen the aerial shots with the drones, but nearly every field is covered in holes. You know, stray shells and rockets and things. You know, there's hardly anything left. There's certainly no buildings left. That's another thing. Mr. Putin, you know, the official line is, oh, we're not attacking civilians and civilian air. Of course, well, that's rubbish, isn't it? You know, okay, there might be the odd sniper in a civilian building, so you'd expect to see one or two buildings knocked down, but not every single one. And, you know, all the stuff going back to Russia, in the backs of vans. The wheat going back to Russia. And also civilians. They're actually pinching civilians to do deals with. So people are finding themselves in the far eastern end of Russia, next to China. In those towns up there, where they know they can't get back without being detected. Yeah, so, you know, Putin's got a lot to answer for. You know, definitely war crimes. And if the Ukrainians get him out of Ukraine and seal the border and everything, then what? You know, then we're like it forever, basically. They'll be firing missiles at each other every now and again. A bit like India and Pakistan. You know, the fight, and China, is it? Can't remember which border. But, you know, there's been clashes, which you just don't hear about. They're shooting at each other all the time, but you don't hear about it. We did have somebody from one of their governments asking us for stuff. We didn't answer. So, what have we got? I think that's 18 minutes. Yeah, so that's the main thing, you know, all these other countries, despots and things. I mean, China is giving these island heads of these islands, or president of an island, £1 million to say, can we have a base? Obviously he's going to say yes, you know, because they're all destitute, aren't they, because of money. So yeah, so he'll say that, thank you very much, I'll have that. Yeah, build it where you like, mate. You know, who's going to say no? So yeah, so China, you know, very, very, they're trying to do it so that we don't notice. But obviously, you know, they obviously think we're all dopes and don't know anything. But, you know, it's quite obviously what's going on, really. The Philippine Islands they've taken over, they've all got bases on now. They've made them bigger by dredging bottom of the sea, destroying all the coral. And that's getting piled up in heaps so that they can build buildings and an airfield and runway. So, yeah, and they know that, you know, that takes up more of our defence stuff, because we've got ships out there now watching them. You know, it's all a bit silly. You know, I wouldn't mind. A lot of people are bothered about having their country, they're proud of their country and all this. But actually, you didn't have any choice. You were born, and you didn't know anything. You didn't suddenly born and suddenly says, right, what country do you want to be from? No. So if you're from a bad one, that's brilliant. That's the best country in the world. If you're from a really good one, that's the best country in the world. So, you know, if we went along the route of genetics, you know, okay, you were born in a particular town, in a particular area, but your genetics say where you came from, which is dead right. I think I recited it in number 1. The chap who hated the Germans because they killed 2 of his family members in World War I and World War II. It's another thing with war. You know, the backlash goes on for hundreds of years. Everyone remembers. And you've got to sit there being the defeater, looking like an idiot for 100 years. You know, that's if they do forget. A lot of countries try and destroy the history. Like, you know, tearing down a statue. What's that going to do? What it does is bring the attention to what that man did, which is then kept in our heads. We're thinking, oh yeah, because I wouldn't have known anything about any of those men on those statues that were taken down if they hadn't have been taken down. Now I've read up and I know everything. And 9 times out of 10, the reason why they're taken down is rubbish, you know. But anyway, everyone should be allowed everywhere. You keep your identity with your DNA and where you came from. If you want to be proud of where you came from, that's great. But just don't shut the borders. You know. Because of money, we've got people coming here basically because of money into England from all over. And because we're such a pushover, they don't stop in France. Or any other good country for that matter. They don't stop there at all. They come to us because we're the big pushovers. In a money-free system, you could go to the Sahara Desert and still be fine. Just as if you were in the centre of London. Okay, you know, your food might take a bit longer to get to you, but you know, because of free food, everything will become takeaway or delivery, unless you want to cook it yourself. Then you order a kitchen and get the food delivered to cook. It's simple. But that's down the road a while. You know, even if the transfer went over tomorrow, there would be 10 years of chaos, or maybe even longer. Because the first thing people would do is go down to the supermarket and get an armful of chocolate. So there'd have to be some kind of sort of rationing before. Not rationing as such, but, you know, so people didn't take 10 of something all the time. A bit like it is now, with toilet paper and vegetable oil. You know, nobody's really moaned about it as such, but there you go. Right, well that's it really. I don't think there's anything else. This Boris Johnson thing with the Partygate, you know, we really don't want all these little problems. You know, we want the big stuff dealt with. The stuff we're all, I suppose it is being dealt with as well. And yes, he shouldn't have lied, but for me, every single politician is as bad as the other one. There's no such good thing. You vote for, there's only 2 parties to vote for really. So you vote for one or the other, or the Green Party, which you know is no good because they won't get in. So after you voted, They tell you what they're going to do and you think, well, that sounds good, so I'll go for that. Nothing happens. Nobody ever sticks to anything they say. And now it's the norm. They get away with it. They just say, oh, we'll give you all £1,000. Oh yeah, quick, vote for him. Does it turn up? No. Etc. That sort of thing. So yeah, it's a bit of a... there's just nobody worth voting for, basically. And all shouting in a 100-year-old building. You know, 200-year-old building. No, it's not for me, really. Right, thank you very much.